Hello, nice to be with you in cyberspace. I'm Chad Littlefield, co-author of this book, Ask Powerful Questions, Create Conversations That Matter. And in this video, we're gonna answer the question, how do you start a conversation in a group, virtually or in person? So how do you start a conversation in a group? Right after the intro plays, I'm actually gonna show you how I started a conversation in a group of 282 people. I was leading a workshop titled The Art of Remote Connection with people who are on our newsletter list, sent out an email saying, hey, free workshop on Friday. 282 people, beautiful human beings turned up. And so I'm just gonna cue up the clip of what happened right before that workshop, and then officially as we got started. And right after that plays, which is about a minute or so, we're gonna unpack the learnings from that and then dive into this little Ask Powerful Questions pyramid and explore a little amazing secret that changed the way that I start all conversations with groups and individually, whether you're meeting virtually or in person. I'm Chad Littlefield. Let's get into it. So real quick, before we cue up this footage from Zoom, directly from me starting a conversation, a little bit of context. So 282 people hopping in, we had the waiting room enabled on Zoom. And the first thing that I did, and the tip that I want you to pay attention to and just see what happens is, and to be honest, I've been experimenting with this more and more, is in person, even in a group of 1,000 people, if I'm speaking, I always look to make a few small connections. Just have, there's no way I can connect with everybody at scale before the presentation, before a workshop. But what I can do is have a few quality interactions. And the cool thing that happens is at the end, those few people that I connected with are always the ones who are like, more enthusiastic to raise their hand or feel a little bit more comfortable to take the risk of sharing and contributing in the group. So here we go, let's meet Ginger and Nicole.
Hello, Ginger.
Hello, Ginger. Hello, Nicole. I let you both through. We're gonna let a whole bunch of people in a minute, but I let you both through because y'all should connect. So look at each other's names, maybe pin each other, and make sure to connect on LinkedIn, and that's all I'm gonna say before we get rolling here. 117 people in the waiting room. All right, lovely. So I'm not gonna fast forward. The workshop went on for another 90 minutes. I'm not gonna cut to the end, but you'll see that when we do a Q&A and ask me anything in the end, Ginger and Nicole were two of the heaviest contributors in the group. And I think part of the reason is that they're connectors, but the other part of the reason is that, and I did this with intention because I felt like and thought that they were special. And I had known, I had email exchanges with a couple of them before, but letting them through before we were in the session with, hundreds of people, there was some really magical thing that happened that throughout the entire workshop, it felt a little bit more personalized, a little bit more meaningful just to them. So now what's about to happen in the video is I'm about to undo the waiting room and let everybody flood in. And so I want you to just watch the first few minutes of that and see what I did to start a conversation in groups or to welcome people and create some sense of connection and community, even though we're in a group of a lot of people. In fact, I want you to count how many times I used people's names. Names are like an on switch for our brain, right? My theory is when we're in a group, the more we can use names, or using names as much as possible, as organically as possible, increases the sense of connection. Is a really great way to start a conversation in a group, to acknowledge individuals in that group. What you want to avoid starting a conversation in a group is anonymity, right? Well, a terrible way to start a conversation in a group is by saying, how are you all? Right? It's in psychology, there's a thing called the Kitty Genovese effect. It's kind of a gruesome observation or study, but the study was essentially, there was a woman who was walking home, I believe, not leaving, I think she was walking home, and she was outside her door in a L-shaped, or a U-shaped rather, apartment complex. So the doors were right at my thumbs here, and she was walking in, she was actually stabbed. And I think estimated, and apologies to the psychologists in the world if I get this number slightly wrong, but I think there were 27 people that saw this happen. They were looking out their windows, they heard Kitty Genovese's screams, saw this happen, but no one called the police. And what that is often referred to as the bystander effect. It's the, oh, someone else will do it, so I'm not going to. So when you're driving down the street and you see a car accident, and it looks like it's happened a while ago and there's a ton of traffic, you're like, oh, there's somebody else has already called. I'm not going to bog down the police. And that might be true in that specific instance, but also when the bystander effect shows up, it's the psychology of passivity. It's the psychology of why we stand back and don't speak up and do something. And one way to decrease that anonymity and create a more cohesive community in a group is to use people's names. So I think that's enough framing. Just count how many times I use names in this quick little clip. I'm gonna let everybody flood in. So I see you, I love you, I'm glad you're here, and I'm gonna let 120 more people in. All right, hey.
Welcome.
Welcome. Hi, Jack. Hi, Melissa. Oh, it's good to see smiling faces. Suzanne, it's nice to see you. Suzanne, is this like our third Zoom? Like we did the annual conference at the beginning. Like we're going at it. I love it. Isaac, you're cheering. Were you a Kickstarter supporter? Nice. Hi, Stacy Budd. Good to see you. Hi, Jen Caserci. Good to see you. I totally butchered your name there. Jen Cassier. Now, really important reminder is I'm not just sharing people's names with no intention. You saw there was a few times that I had personal context. So I knew, there were clients on that call. There were people that I'd worked with in the past, people who I exchanged emails with, people maybe who have even left comments on YouTube videos if they liked the video. And so I was making personal connections rather than just saying, right, like the trick is not, or it's not a trick to begin with, but the idea is not to say, hi, blank, 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 and just rattle off a bunch of names that you see on Zoom gallery view. That doesn't really create connection. If anything, it might actually create that separation. So as much as possible, as organically as possible. And depending on your group size, that might only be 3 or 4 names, but it still breaks down that effect of anonymity and says, I see you. And that's where I wanna go and unpack the second rung or the second layer of this Ask Powerful Questions pyramid, I see you. So if you can look at this pyramid, this would be really cool if you had a magic wand and your goal was to start a conversation in a group, virtually or in person. It would be really convenient if you could do it in a way that just said all at once, I'm willing to know you, I see you, I hear you, I get you, I'm with you, right? That would be a convenient, maybe an over the top, but it would be convenient to be able to just snap your fingers and do that. Not possible, and so what we've developed, what Will and I have created is this how-to pyramid that unpacks and helps create this impact. And so at this level up, I see you, names are one part of that, but a bigger part of that is our own natural, genuine curiosity. When we are naturally curious about other people, it's obvious. When we're asking questions out of obligation or we're not genuinely curious, it is also obvious. And so one other really great way to start a conversation in a group virtually is to be curious about one very specific thing in that group. So you can start a whole flood of connections if you just say, hey Joe, I saw that post on LinkedIn that you did. What's the story behind that? So asking that question and hearing Joe's response, connections are kind of this exponential thing that when somebody shares something, everybody in a group is inclined to see themselves in whatever's being shared. So when Joe answers, it's likely that somebody else will be, oh, me too, or oh, no way, what about this? Or I didn't know you lived here, or right, there's gonna be all these connections that jump in. And so the path to start a conversation in a group might just be one specific curiosity, one question. So you're inviting contribution from one person, you're kind of facilitating that as opposed to the anonymous way of, how are you all doing? If you've got a really engaged group, they might answer that, but it's really easy for the critics and consumers to sit back and be really passive in that conversation. So if you really want to invite everybody in and create this culture of connection, belonging, and trust and inclusion, ironically, one really great pathway to start is curiosity about just one person. When they answer, everyone else can see themselves and comment how they see themselves in that response. And you can help facilitate that along. This entire video was based off of like the first 1 minute of a 2-hour workshop. I have an entire series on the art of remote connection and several activities, exercises that we did breaking down that. So you can check out the link in the description. And these videos right here are really great follow-ups. If you enjoyed this content, want to dive a little bit deeper, want to be a better connector in the world, I'm Chad Littlefield. Have an awesome day.